The reason this meeting is mandatory is because we have some critical information that we need to share with each and every one of you. AUAF is fortunate enough to have Mr. Larry Dakoff on our staff. Larry spent a number of years as a certified fraud examiner for the Inspector General. Larry's job with us is he basically makes sure that we've crossed all of our T's and dotted all of our I's. As Larry's looked over our policies and procedures, he's found some areas for improvement. And tonight, the reason why we invited all of you here, and the reason why this is so critical, is to make sure that no one in this room ever inadvertently commits Medicaid fraud. So what Larry's going to do tonight is he's going to go through some revised policies that we need everyone to follow. So without further ado, Mr. Larry Dakoff.
Thank you all for coming. As Carrie had indicated, you all are going to be compensated for being here at your regular rate. One of the things you're going to notice is we have some folks in blue shirts with the AUAF Foundation on their breast pocket. These are the shirts our field staff that come out and visit the clients and you folks are going to be wearing going forward. We want to make sure that when our folks come to your door, you understand who they are. George has got an example of the shirt. George, would you mind standing up just for a minute? So here's the kind of So we're going to have our folks in materials so that you can recognize them. They'll have ID cards so that you won't have any problem understanding who's coming. Okay, with that, I'd like to start off with why are we here? Well, we're required as AUAF to follow regulations that are mandated to us by the state of Illinois. Because we're mandated, so are all of you because you're our employees. We are required to follow these regulations. If we don't follow them, you folks and us will be in some serious trouble. And I'll explain as we go along what I mean by that. So one of the new things we're talking about are your cell phones. When you work with us, we have to be able to communicate with you. If there's an issue, we need to contact you. So you have to have your cell phone on when you're punched in working with our clients. If you're busy and you can't answer the phone when somebody calls from AUAF, you have to have your voicemail box available so somebody can leave a message for you. Oftentimes we've found that we can't leave messages because either your voicemail boxes are either full or not set up properly. So it's important that we are able to communicate with you at all times while you're punched in. We understand that sometimes you're busy, maybe working with a client, doing some kind of chore, but you will have to be able to respond to us. So again, it's during the hours that you're working for us, you need to be able to be in communication with us. So let's talk about the EVV device that you all have. This device is supposed to be at the client's house. It's not supposed to be in your pocket or in your home. This is to be left at the client. Okay, when our field supervisors are coming out to look at the client's facility and make sure that the clients are doing well and that you're doing your jobs, one of the things they're going to be looking for is that EVV device at the home. Your schedules. Your schedules are set, and they're the schedule that we expect everybody to be following. We have it established in our systems These are your set hours. If you need to change those hours, you must communicate that to the staffing coordinators. Temporary changes are fine if you contact the staffing coordinators in advance, but a permanent change requires information that you must communicate to the staffing coordinators along with your client's approval. I mean, after all, you're working for the clients. Let's talk about missed punches. This is an issue the government is strictly looking at these days. They're very concerned about these types of programs, and they're looking at various companies like us not having proper documentation for individuals that don't punch in or don't punch out properly. As a result, for us to be able to pay you and for us to be able to bill, we're going to have to make sure that you have a reasonable explanation as to why something didn't punch in or punch out. We have the adjustment request form. I think some of you have seen it. If you haven't, this is the form that we're going to require for any adjustment and a reasonable explanation of why you missed the punch either in or out. Let's talk about some of the issues that affect why these things go wrong. Sometimes we get an invalid code on the EVV device. If that code comes up, what we want you to do is we want you to immediately contact the staffing coordinators. We're changing our hours that have availability for our staffing coordinators. We have staffing coordinators now working from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8:30 at night. So there's no reason why you can't get a hold of somebody to talk to them about issues related to not being able to punch in or punch out as it results with your EVV device. Okay? So if you're having problems, contact us as soon as possible so we can fix it. Oftentimes you will not have to come into the office. We can oftentimes fix it over the phone or direct you on how you might be able to fix it. If you can't, we will have to have you come in, and we'll have to, sometimes these devices go bad and we have to replace them and fix them. But we do have to have you do it quickly because we can't keep having numerous missed punches or problems as a result of an EVV device. If you're using a landline, we've often heard that the landline goes down or there's problems with the landline. Once again, if that happens, you need to contact your staffing coordinators right away. Tell them what's going on. Explain to them what the problem is. Oftentimes, there's an outage in an area or there's some difficulty. One-time type of events, we understand. But if there's multiple issues of landlines being down, we're going to ask you to come in and get an EVV device so that you can use something different since the landline isn't working properly. Now let's talk about landline phone numbers, because I think that's another issue. With the landlines, we have your landline number inputted into our system, so it's recognized where you're coming from. If for some reason that number changes, you have to let us know, because if you don't, we don't recognize it anymore, and we don't know if you're having a valid punch in or punch out. So it's important, once again, I think the important thing here to remember is you need to keep us informed. If there's changes or issues, call the staffing coordinators. Once again, they're there from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8:30 at night, and we're soon going to have it on Saturdays and Sundays as well. Let's talk about the documentation a little bit. If you're home, if you're not home at the client's home, and one of our field supervisors comes by, we're going to be asking, where are you? Why are you not there? We understand there are reasons to be away. But once again, the government has now come down and said, give us documentation why the field work, your HCAs, are not there at the client's home working. So once our field supervisors come and they find you're not there, they'll call, they'll try to get a hold of you. So that's why, once again, it's important to have your phones available and so that we can get a hold of you. Now, if for some reason we can't, or even if we do get a hold of you, we have a new document that we call the Home Care Aid Response to Missed Field Supervisor Visits. I know this is hard to see, so we're gonna kind of expand upon it a little. George, would you show them the first part of it? So really what we're gonna do is we're gonna put your name, we're gonna give you some information about when we were there. The field supervisor's information is gonna be on here, the date and time that we came, and we're gonna leave this document with you so that the second part of it, you can see, has the information for you to fill out to indicate to us, where were you? What were you doing? So for instance, if you were out shopping, which is often the case, you need to provide a receipt for the time and date that you were out shopping so that it coincides with the time and date that our people were there. It's the reason you were not there. The other reason you need to provide documentation like that is you're spending the client's money, right? So you need to have documentation to show why you need to be reimbursed or why you spent the client's money. The government, and oftentimes the MCOs, a lot of you are now working for MCOs as opposed to the IDOA, right? Because they're taking over this, are now requiring this documentation to be sent to them. So we have to go back to you and say, where is this documentation? So that we can provide it to them. So let's talk about the doctor's office. That's another common type of reason to be away, right? So if you're going to take your client to the doctor's office, get a note, get the appointment card, get something to verify where you are, because we need to verify it with the government why you weren't at your residence, or the client's residence, I should say, when you were supposed to be there. We have to provide this information. If somebody from one of these agencies comes by, they're going to ask the same questions. So we need to show them that we have the documentation to support the reasons that you folks are telling us why you're not at the client's home. We understand the plan of care has oftentimes indicated that you could do these functions, but you have to provide documentation to us why. So let's talk now about task sheets. The task sheet is really your record of the performance that you did during the month with that client. When you click in and out, that's just your time card, right? But it really doesn't show what did you do while you were working at the client. So the task sheet is that document, and the task sheet needs to be sent to us because those task sheets are now being required to be sent in oftentimes to the government or these agencies. We have to have it. We have to send it in to them. So you have to make sure that you're filling these task sheets out properly. The task sheet has to be received by us by the 10th of the following month. Okay? We must be receiving these task sheets. and they must be on a timely basis. We have numerous ways that you can get the task sheet to us. You can fax it to us, you can mail it to us, you can email it to us, you can scan it in to us, and there's a drop box in front of our office where you can drop it off as well. But we have to have it, and it has to be there before the 10th of the month. Now let's talk about what those task sheets and how they should be filled out. The task sheet represents the work that you're doing in conformity with the plan of care, right? Each one of your clients has been given a plan of care. That plan of care shows the different things that you should be doing on a daily basis, right? So if we look at, let's look at the plan of care for a second, George. Okay, so here's an example of the plan of care. And let's blow it up a little bit to look at what the areas of assistance are. So if we look at the areas of assistance, as you all have seen before, I'm sure, that you have eating. And that's 5 times a week. Bathing once a week. Grooming 5 times a week. So on and so forth. Your task sheet needs to reflect what the plan of care says. You can't just mark everything that you did the same every day. That's not acceptable. They have to be the same as what the plan of care is. If you don't have or don't know what the plan of care is, please contact either your task coordinators or your field supervisors, and they'll provide it to you so that you can be in conformity when you're filling out your task sheet. Now the task sheet has the headings at the top, as you know. It has the days, it has the client's authorization, and it has the home care aide signature, yours, the date that you are completing this, and then our field supervisors will sign it once they receive it. George, yeah. So once again, these headings will match the headings that are available in the plan of care. So not every heading is going to be done every day, right? Sometimes, like if it has bathing once a week, well, it's only going to be 1 time per week, not every single mark. Let's look at one that's completed correctly. George? Okay, so here's a task sheet that has matching the plan of care. It has the client's signature or initials on it. We have to have both to be completed. The task sheet also has to have your signature. It has to be dated. Without any of this information, it's incomplete. And it may cause you not to be paid on a timely basis, and it may cause us not to be able to bill. This is a very important document. That's why why it's so critical that you folks understand that this is your work product. This shows everybody what you did during that monthly period. George, show me a couple examples of incorrect. So here's an incorrect one. No HCA name, no client name in it. Here's another one where the client representative has an X instead of the initials. Now, it's very common, you laugh. Let me say this. We do understand that you do have some clients that do not have the ability to maybe write their name or do their initials. If that's the case, just send us a document that shows, that testifies, basically that says, my client can't do this, and have somebody witness it and send it in to us. So that we can have something on file that shows your client's mark is their signature. their authorization. But we discourage that. Here's another one where the home care aide didn't sign it or didn't date it. Once again, if you don't sign it and date it, we don't know who did the work. We don't know on what date it was done. Once again, why are these important? Well, it's important because it shows what you did to get paid for. We can't bill. And if we can't bill, it's hard to pay your salaries because that's where we get our money from. And you are our employees. What are the primary responsibilities of the staffing coordinators? Well, the staffing coordinators verify that you've clocked in and clocked out properly, right? They're there to make sure that you're working the scheduled hours you're supposed to work. And they're there to assist you in any issues that come up with your checking in and checking out. So they're there to assist you folks in making sure that everything is going smoothly with the clock in and clock out process, and that you're there taking care of the client at the times you're supposed to be there. All this is really about the client, right? Our jobs are really to be making sure that the clients are being taken care of. Now, I recognize oftentimes these are your relatives, your parents, and it's easy sometimes to say, well, you know, I take care of them all the time. But you're scheduled and you're paid for a specific time. And if you're not there during that time, or you're not taking care of that time, the government doesn't care if you took care of them for 20 hours before or after. It's the time that you're getting paid for, because that's government money. Okay? So keep that in mind. What are the primary responsibilities of the field supervisors? Well, they're there to make sure that the clients are being taken care of. They're doing unannounced visits to be certain that you folks are taking care of the clients are in good health, and that you're there during your scheduled hours. Once again, we are required by the government to do these investigations or to review to make sure that things are going properly. So that really brings us down to, why are we doing all these changes? Why all of a sudden is this important? Why are these policies? Well, the government pays us. This is state money, Medicaid money in most cases. It pays your wages, and we don't want to violate any laws. We don't want you to violate any laws. We don't want you to go to jail, and we don't want you to be fined. This is very serious stuff, folks. I mean, we brought you all here. We're paying you all to come here because we, as an organization, want to make sure that you folks understand the importance of making sure that these rules and regulations aren't violated. We really don't want people to be in trouble. And what kind of trouble are we talking about? We're talking about what the government considers fraud. And what's fraud? Well, fraud is saying something that you're not really doing. That's a simple explanation of it. And what is the next issue for us is really, what is Medicaid fraud, which is really the important thing that we've got here. So Medicaid fraud is not providing the service to the client during the scheduled hours. I talked a little bit about, I understand that a lot of you may have relatives, and you may be taking care of them 20 hours a day. And you think, hey, it's okay if I'm not there the couple hours I can sneak off? Well, if you do, during the time that you're getting paid for, that's Medicaid fraud. And you can go to jail. I'll give you another example. I and George are brothers, and we're taking care of our invalid father. And I'm on the clock. And I tell George, George, I got to run out for a couple minutes because I got to go do something. And somebody comes and finds out that I'm the guy on the clock, but George is really taking care of our father. Well, George and I just committed Medicaid fraud. We could go to jail. We could be fined. You know? As long as you're not doing that, that's exactly correct. It won't be you. That's what we're trying to make sure doesn't happen. So let's talk about what are the penalties for Medicaid fraud. What can happen? Well, for one, Medicaid fraud is a felony. And as a felony, you can spend 1 to 3 years in prison. You could get fined up to $25,000. Additionally, there could be civil penalties as well as criminal penalties. And the civil penalties can be as high as $50,000 each time. And the government is checking, folks. They're out looking. So we're trying to make sure that you all understand the consequences and what can happen if you don't follow the regulations and rules. I mean, if, you know, to be in this program, I don't think anybody here wants to go to jail for $12 an hour. So let me give you a couple examples. Phyllis Wilson, who was age 51, got convicted of Medicaid fraud. Phyllis was charging her services to the company while her client was in the hospital. Okay? Well, they caught Phyllis. She was convicted and she was sentenced to 3 years in prison and she had to pay back $6,100. Let's look at one other example. Here's Lucinda. Lucinda, age 59, was submitting fraudulent timesheets. She was telling everybody she was working at a client's office, a client's home, while she had another job. So she wasn't even there. Phyllis got caught. Phyllis was convicted, and she spent 3 years in prison, and she had to pay back $7,200. So basically, what we're telling you folks is we want you to not be in prison. We don't want you to pay fines. We want you to be safe. This is all about making sure that you folks understand the consequences of not doing the right thing. With that, I'm going to ask our president of our organization, the board of directors, to come up and just say a couple closing issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Good evening. I will be very brief. I don't want to keep you here too long. Just want to tell you it's our job to educate you. Our ultimate goal is to protect you. Thank you for coming tonight. These are some serious stuff that you have to pay attention to. If you have any questions, we're there from 6 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. You can call us anytime with any question. Thank you and good night.